Hey, this is Jim McDonald. Welcome to episode 228 of the PowerCast. A little bit of behind the scenes on this one. Mark and I just started recording because we were expecting a call from a guest, and that call never came because the guest had a conflict that we didn't know about. And so we just managed to talk for an hour, largely about, there are a lot of advantages to lifting in a powerlifting gym, but there are some disadvantages as well. So we talked considerably about that. Anyway, like and share this episode and have a great weekend. I just saw the new Blade Runner and it's fucking awesome. So enjoy whatever you choose to do this weekend. We'll be back on Wednesday with part 1 with Dr. Andy Galpin.
Support for this episode of the PowerCast comes from Precision Nutrition, home of the world's top nutrition coaches. Head over to get.pn/PowerCast for a free nutrition course, especially for PowerCast listeners, focusing on the role of carbs. That's get.pn/PowerCast. Reebok.com, home of the Legacy Lifting Shoe, the official shoe of the PowerCast. 8-Man Apparel at 8manstrong.com. Compex Muscle Stim products at CompexUSA.com. Use the code PowerCast for an additional 28% off all but the lowest price model. HowMuchYouBench.net. Use the code PowerCast for 15% off slingshots and free shipping on orders over $100. And bodybuilding.com, the world's largest fitness website and supplement store. Bodybuilding.com has free plans for every level. Visit bodybuilding.com today to become your best self.
Recorded live in West Sacramento, California, this is Mark Bell's PowerCast. Standing just to the left of Jim McDonald, here's your host, Mark Bell.
Those little clicks, I think that means that we're on.
We're on.
So Jim and I here, we were talking before we got on the podcast for a little bit about some training. And we were just kind of talking about, we had a guest on, Hanny Rambod, which is the greatest name of all time. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly.
I think you nailed it, yeah.
And he gave us a lot of great information. He talked a lot about bodybuilding and talked a lot about his techniques that he's learned over the years, and a lot of it centered around just getting a pump.
Yeah.
And getting a pump and then trying to keep it for the whole workout. And Jim and I were kind of talking about how that's kind of hard to do in a powerlifting gym. Here at Super Training, we have a lot of equipment. It's not necessarily a lack of equipment, but we don't have all the machines of a commercial gym.
Right.
But it's mainly the environment. It's mainly just kind of the way powerlifting is. And also, it's kind of hard to do powerlifting right, without it taking a long time and without having to help other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the pacing is a totally different animal inside of a powerlifting gym. I remember that, like, my favorite speed squat partner ever was Treston, because we would work fast. Boom, 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 right. Boom, boom. Even if we had to change mono height, right. We had to change weights,
really
all that stuff.
Can't have more than 2 or 3, maybe 4.
Yeah.
Sometimes you end up with 5 or 6.
Because it's not cardio, but it should feel like you're doing a lot of work, and you should be struggling for your breath a little bit, you know?
We were doing sets the other day where we literally, it was just the time it took us to walk around the monolift. So you did 3 reps, you got done, and you kind of you're not like sprinting.
Mm-hmm.
You got done with your 3 reps, and then you would walk around the monolift however long it took you to set up again, which really, especially when you get fatigued, ends up being like a minute.
Yeah.
Because you just start to slow down. But it's like about a 30-second rest. But a big thing with bodybuilding is getting through a lot of work in a short period of time. And I think as powerlifters, we need to work on figuring that shit out a little bit better.
I think that I always wanted to do a music video of speed squats to OPP. I think that that's the right tempo.
Other people's squats?
Yeah. I think that's the right tempo for speed squats. I think that if you're moving in a way that would sync up with that music, I think that you're pretty much dead on.
Well, I think at Westside, they would say that I think they got carried away because they would say that they were more concerned about the way the weights moved.
Yeah.
And I actually think that that's that's a little bit of a flaw. I think that you should be concerned with how the weights move, but you should be concerned about how the weights move and how fast you're moving in between your sets, because I think that the more work capacity you can build, the more opportunities you have to be stronger. And if you can lift and hold positions while in a fatigue state, I also think that benefits you in a number of ways. You know, neuromuscular coordination and being able to kind of try to hold a position when you're tired. It's really fucking hard.
I think too, isn't the length of time that you do a speed squat or a speed bench, isn't that supposed to be roughly equivalent of how much time it takes to do a max lift in a meet?
Yeah, that's the way that Louis equated it out originally.
So if you take forever to do that, or you're taking forever in between, you're not really conditioning yourself for performance.
Right, and rest intervals, I mean, you know, you can apply as much science to this stuff as you want, but it hasn't been, at least to my knowledge, hasn't been tested a ton when it comes to strength training, but it has been tested a ton where there's places to make money, such as track and field, things like that.
Right.
Olympic gold medals, and they've tested it quite a bit. And so usually the shorter duration stuff, 100-meter sprint, throwing a shot put, would have longer rest periods associated with, in accordance to how long it takes, because the intensity is so great. And so applying that to your lifting, it would be similar, and that's kind of why Louis Simmons with the West Side Barbell program adapted the idea of, okay, we're going to use like 60% of our max. We're going to get through this rapidly, and we're going to use short rest periods. And the reason why you're using such short rest periods is because the weights that you're using aren't great, but you are trying to be as explosive as possible.
Right.
And so to have those repeated efforts be explosive would be hard if you didn't have some rest.
Right.
You can't just go and haphazardly do
You'd
15
be sloppy.
reps.
Yeah.
You'd start to get fatigued. But a bodybuilder being able to turn around and be able to do, you know, they'll do like ladders. You know, they'll basically warm up. They'll get to like a 6 rep max on something like an overhead press, and then they'll go and do like, you know, 8, 10, 12, 15, stuff like that. Or sometimes they ramp the numbers up, the amount of reps they're doing, or sometimes they ramp them down. So they might start with, say, 30-pound dumbbells. They might do a set of 15. Then they might do a set of 12 with 40s and so on until they graduate to doing about 4, like a kind of a 4-rep max. And then they would go back the other way. But the key element to all of it is that they don't rest very long.
Right.
It's just back and forth, and you get destroyed. You more recently have been doing a little bit more of that type of stuff in a commercial gym, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just a whole lot more assistance stuff. I think we've been doing 1 day a week that's just assistance, and we squat, we bench, and we deadlift. We do assistance exercises.
Sore, or is it not that bad?
It's not so bad, but things I haven't actually been paying attention to absolutely get sore. Bis and tries totally get sore. I have to try to not have my shoulders be sore because they're already a problem, and they already cost me, you know, money in a massage therapist every month.
It'll be hard to just sleep and do daily tasks if your shoulders are banged up.
Right. And, you know, making changes to lower body stuff, I can definitely feel. Leg press will just fucking kill me now.
Right.
If I get enough volume in on it, which, like we were talking earlier, that's something I wish I'd always had access to, because I think that my hamstrings would have stayed healthier. My ass would have been healthier all the way along.
Healthy ass.
Speaking of,
how old's my asshole? Remember that? This whole thing is like 68 years old or something.
Absolutely. A few weeks ago, we ran into Ugo.
Oh yeah,
track athlete.
Her ass is in shape.
Yes, it is. Very tall. But I have to tell you, she had never deadlifted before.
Wow.
And she's working with a coach who had suggested deadlifts. And she actually, I was recording them for her. She actually said, can you do this one, record this one for me? And we realized, like, she's so long-legged. I mean, so high-hipped that getting down to the bar without getting over the bar is a huge challenge.
Right.
we showed her as much as you can in 10 minutes in a commercial gym, but we said go back to your coach and ask exactly why he's prescribed the deadlift for you, and if it has to be conventional or if you could switch to sumo, because you're going to have a much cleaner technique,
right,
being so long-legged with a sumo deadlift.
Right, and she's somebody that's been training at Super Training on and off for 2-3 years or so, and she has that track background. She's a sprinter, and when she first came in, she trained very much like an athlete. Where there really wasn't enough attention, in my opinion, to just strength training, just deadlifting and squatting and benching, and because you can get a lot out of just for like anybody else. Doesn't matter if you're a chick and you're a figure competitor. Deadlifting is where it's at, and squats and bench press, at least to some extent. You do too much of it and you'll get too slow and you'll be too sore and too achy, and you won't be able to display your other aspects of fitness. I've mentioned this before, but we're all addicted to it, and we do it too much, and we lift too heavy too often. We're not really taking care of ourselves enough, and we're staying on one exercise for too long. Doing multiple sets of multiple reps and just breaking ourselves down a lot.
Well, I think the key to what you're saying is that they should do those exercises. They should just not put more emphasis on them than they do any other exercise that they do.
Yeah, take 12 minutes with it.
Yeah.
8 minutes with it. I don't know. Like, it doesn't have to be that long, because the strength level is not real high. I did some deadlifts yesterday, and did 2 or 3 sets of 10 with 225, and then did a few sets of 10 with 315.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's not heavy. That doesn't feel great for me for right now, just because I haven't deadlifted much at all recently. But it felt good in terms of getting my heart rate up, and it felt like a good workout. And then, I moved into some squats and did some sprinting stuff. And if it wasn't for the conditioning stuff, I don't think I'd be that sore today. You want to try to get in stuff and get out of it without having the negative, especially if you're an athlete, not without having the negative effects of it. I remember years ago, The Rock, it was at Gold's Gym in Venice, and me and my brother and a few other guys were doing some squats and stuff, and he was like, I don't really do much of that because I can't be slowed down. And, at the time I was thinking, well, but I'm like doing like speed work, I'm moving fast. But I know now I have a better understanding of what he means. You can't afford what it does to you the next day. A lot of athletes can't afford. Cody Garbrandt, the UFC champion, he can't come over here and crush himself on deadlifts. He'll be too exhausted. He won't be able to train. And as pointed out yesterday with Hanny, everything was surrounding that training session. All the nutrition, sleeping, napping.
Right.
He didn't get into it, but there are drugs involved in bodybuilding that are surrounding the workout as well. Everything that you do is surrounding that workout and trying to make the performance optimal.
Right.
And so for us as lifters, some people that argue for certain diets and against other certain diets, if you can't have a decent performance in the gym day in and day out, then there's something's wrong. Like, you might be training too much. I'll admit that I fall into that category often, where I do too much, and then the next day I feel wiped out, and I still go and try to train anyway. But it's just kind of my mentality, I guess. But your nutrition has to kind of fill in some of those gaps as well. And for me, without eating any carbohydrates, it'd actually be smarter to be like, you know what, my workload when it comes to the gym should be short and sweet. I should be getting in and out of there. I don't have to burn up glycogen to be able to tap into burning fat like maybe somebody else does. I don't really need to get into that much work. I can probably get away with doing something short and sweet. You don't need to do
depletion workouts.
Yeah, right. And then, on top of that, it's just I've been training for a long time. I already have a certain amount of muscle, and I don't really see myself changing a ton in terms of like, I could maybe make my shoulders and arms a little bigger because they've been bigger before, but I don't know. I'm not getting any younger.
I know that feeling. I saw a picture of myself from 3 years ago, from the Olympia 3 years ago today, and I weighed. I mean, that was right.
Those goddamn Facebook pictures.
I know. Fuck that. But I mean, probably the lowest body weight that I've been at in a while was like 2 weeks, 3 weeks before this, maybe. Right before Will was wounded in Afghanistan. So I actually flew from Walter Reed to Vegas for the Olympia 3 years ago, and I look at myself and I weighed probably roughly what I do now. Which is about 205. And I got that phone again. I look really flat. I look a lot flatter, probably than I think I do now. I don't know. I haven't really seen pictures, but I was not doing the kind of hypertrophy stuff then. I was just trying to power lift, 3 days or 4 days a week, whatever, and not really put the effort into either cardio or hypertrophy work, and I just looked really flat, really skinny at this weight.
Well, I think it's like John Wooden who says something to the effect of don't mistake like movement for achievement or activity for achievement. I think that happens a lot in powerlifting where you're sweating, you're in the middle of your workout. But if I went over to you and said, Jim, what did you do today? And you'd be like, well, I warmed up, and then I did a double with 315, and then I did a single with 365, and did another single at 365. I'd be like, well, fuck, if we're working out together, I'd be like, well, we really haven't done anything.
Right.
Like, we really, in the grand scheme of things, we haven't done much. I mean, you really just said, I repeated back to you, you did 365 for one and 405 for one. So how are we going to get a better physique based off of that? It's not enough stuff.
Yeah, it's not enough work.
But the negative to all that, the real negative to all that, it's not, training heavy is great, and it has its place for sure. The real negative of that is that it may have taken us 10 minutes before we squat to warm up. It takes an additional minimum, at least another 10, and there's probably 10 minutes of dicking around, so it's probably 30 minutes of doing a whole lot of nothing before we even got to those sets. So now how much longer do we really want to hang out in the gym for?
Exactly.
And it's like we'll look at each other and be like, hey, look, you want to do back attack? He'll be like, no. Want to pull the sled? Nah. Let's do GHR and sit-ups and then let's go home. And it's like, what did that didn't really... Whereas in another type of environment, you could say, hey, let's get through some deadlifts. Let's get to a good set of 3 and do 2 extra sets of it or so. 1 or 2 extra. So we're going to do 3 sets of 3. And then once we do that, let's commit to supersetting, leg press and leg curl back and forth. And then when you finish that up and you do walking lunges as sit-ups or something, way more productive.
Right.
Even though that's not a huge workout either, you could probably blast through that workout in 45 minutes and you crushed your legs and you got some core training in there and you got to everything that you kind of need.
And I think part of it, like you said, part of it is just bullshitting around. Like you get into this environment and it will suck your time to be social with everybody. I mean, part of the reason you're here is that you like the people, right? And this is when you interact with them, other than late night texting. Right. So it's a time suck.
Yeah, you have to make an agreement with somebody. You have to kind of get a hold of somebody for the day, and at least that's the way it's always worked for me, is, grab a hold of somebody for that day and just say, hey, we're doing this. And Matt Wenning's method is great because you're knocking out 3 or 4 exercises before you really start your lifting.
Right.
And it's all stuff that's very easy to do. Something I've always said about powerlifting there's 2 main things. The two lowest levels of entry that powerlifting has ever seen in terms of powerlifting as like a business has been bench only meets and then getting rid of powerlifting gear. Those have been the 2 friendliest things that have kind of said to people,
absolutely.
hey, we'll take you in, because bench only, a lot of guys like to bench. A lot of people have injuries. A lot of people just don't like squatting and deadlifting. It's too hard to figure out. And every bro benches. And so at some point, a lot of people have that have acquired a decent bench have competed at just some local gym, maybe not official meet or whatever, but they've competed in some sort of bench contest probably, right?
Yeah, I've seen people at 24 downtown benching 4 plates. Like, well, that's pretty impressive, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Most people can't.
You can go to almost any gym in the entire country, and you're going to find guys that bench 4 plates. You're going to find a handful of guys that bench over 3, and occasionally, at a lot of different gyms, you're going to find guys that either have done 5 or still do 5. It might not be the prettiest bench, but there's strong people in there, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're doing a lot of different exercises, attacking things from different angles, and the recovery from those machines is different too. The real bastard of a barbell is that it is a barbell, and the real great thing about a barbell is that it's a barbell. And the assistant stuff is awesome because it's not a barbell, and it's kind of weak in some ways because it's not a barbell. So they both have their place.
Right.
They both have their spot. It's just that one probably doesn't deserve too much attention over the other unless it's very specific. Like unless you're getting ready for a contest, then maybe you got to, like for a bodybuilder, maybe bodybuilders got to stay away from the barbell a little bit. And maybe a powerlifter needs to gravitate towards the barbell a little bit more as the contest gets closer.
As Hani was saying yesterday, that he doesn't even have most of his competitors do a flat barbell bench. Now, I think they could probably do it with a slingshot if they were appropriately supervised. But he's not supervising everybody directly either. He's not standing there coaching all of his clients. So.
Yeah, and then there's also just the ego factor.
Right.
Those guys are huge.
Yeah, and so they want to.
They're going to lift with less than they're not going to lift with less than 3 plates.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys are fucking massive.
Which comes around to another point about the environment of a powerlifting gym. You're talking about Cody Garbrandt can't come in here and probably do what he'd like to do because he'll be knocked out. We have we have plenty of people like that who for whom this environment is just a little too dangerous because they get in here and like kind of the ego kicks in and they want to do something. They want to do something big in this space in front of this audience.
It's a great point. It wouldn't be any different than if we went over to Team Alpha Male and got excited and like, hey, we want to roll with somebody.
Right,
it's
exactly.
Like, no, buddy, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't understand. They do this every day. You're going to really get hurt bad.
Like if you're in a commercial gym, nobody's paying attention to your lifting unless there are other lifters. Like I'm paying attention to see, if there's anybody that is actually strong and, some combination of strong and jacked.
Right.
There are a lot of I think maybe like figure physique chicks that work out there too, because there's some ladies who are in excellent shape there, let's say.
Yeah, I think when we get Hani in here, I think that it'll help bring some of those people around here. He said that next time he comes in town, there's a bodybuilding show, and he said he'd bring some people in. So
it's like November, maybe.
I think he mentioned something about October, but usually it is November.
Yeah, maybe.
But maybe they changed that date a little bit.
I think there are 2, as a matter of fact.
I think there's actually 3 that occurred during the year that are here in Sacramento that are supposed to be pretty big.
Yeah.
He's like, I want to say he's partly in charge of it somehow or something like that. I can't remember.
Possibly. Total side note, but do you remember Jay from back in the Midtown days? Asian guy, didn't get around too well because he needed a hip replacement. Overweight.
Absolutely.
Yes. I see him at 24 all the time. I see him every time I go, pretty much.
He was great. He was always so nice.
He had hip replacement, and he's lost a lot of weight.
That's great.
He's under 200 pounds. He said to tell you that he appreciates the encouragement that he's gotten along the way.
Yeah. I used to be in contact with him here and there, and I know he would lose some weight here and there, and he would go up and down. But like he was born with some sort of hip thing, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and so he's moving much better.
That's good.
I think there's maybe enough damage that he doesn't have like a perfect gait, but it has gotten considerably better. And he is faithfully in the gym all the time. I think he's still dropping weight. He said that he'd locked in on the number of calories that it works for him to lose weight, and as long as he sticks to that, he's he continues to lose weight and is fine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard, for those people that are trying to get momentum. There's two great deterrents in my opinion, and number one is being in pain.
Yeah.
I could hear all kinds of stuff throughout the day. I could hear, that my son fucking threw a book across a room in school and hit someone in the back of the head. Not that that's ever happened. He's a pretty good kid, but like if something like that happened, I'd be like, all right, well, he's fucking 13, right? Like I don't know. The kid was probably being a dick, and he probably deserved it. I can hear a lot of different things during the course of the day, and they don't really bother me. I could hear that we had a mistake, and we have 4,000 slingshots that are fucked up, and it's discouraging and a little frustrating. But I'm always like, okay, well, it doesn't do me any good to cry about it. It doesn't do me any good to be mad about it. I'm frustrated, but that doesn't really help solve the problem either. But if I have pain, I'm fucking pissed.
Yeah.
It makes me so irritated that I don't have a good poker face. I can't hide it very well, and I get infuriated. And it's not anybody else, but then I kind of recognize that everyone realizes I'm not happy, which is a weird vibe for everybody. And I don't mean to ever do that. It's just like if I'm in pain, I feel fucking shitty. And I'm like, damn it, I just wish I could fucking train and not have this nagging whatever the fuck it is for the day. And, I should probably usually just, I've gotten a lot better. I usually just try to move on to something different. But there is kind of that thing here at the gym where you're like, no, we're kind of doing this as like a group. Like, I don't want to bow out of the group, or I don't want to have to only use 225, because then I'm like, you feel like you're slowing everybody else down, and it's one of those things that for people out there that are listening to the show that are trying to get some momentum and they're in pain, you're going to be, I've made speeches and shit about this kind of stuff. You're going to be in pain anyway. Shit's going to hurt. Jim, you're 54. Jim is 54. There's so many people that are Jim's age that are in way worse shape than him, that have banged up knees, banged up hips, banged up shoulders, banged up this, banged up that. And they're just in pain just because of life.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily, maybe they played football when they're young or something, but a lot of times they're not very active, and not being active is the worst thing that you can do. And so you want to always try to find something that you can do to gain some momentum. And that guy Jay is a great example because he never gave up.
No, he never gave up. And he's young, I think. I don't know how old he is, but I think he's
like 35.
Something like that, yeah. Something else that happens in powerlifting gyms I discovered last week.
Lots of dicking around.
Normally when I squat, I'm not squatting very heavy right now. It's getting better. It's definitely improving. All my shit that actually limits my squat is decreasing, but I hadn't squatted out of a monolift in forever until Chris and I were here last week. So
monolifts are great.
He's used to seeing me from, spotting me from the back. Not even really so much spotting me, just making sure I'm lined up right and getting back into the hooks and stuff when I'm walking. It's
more complicated when you don't have a monolift. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he was watching me squat from the front this time, and my shoulders are fucked up. My left shoulder is pretty fucked up, and so I've always had a difficult time leveling the bar.
Yeah, the weight would be like helicoptering on you a little bit.
Yeah, it's always a little bit like this. I don't really
more forward on one side.
More forward on one side, exactly. More forward on the left. And boy, he saw that, and he just started freaking out. And when I racked loudly freaking out.
Yeah.
Like there was something terrible going on. And when I racked the weight, I actually yelled at him, and I was like, don't ever fucking do that. Don't do that, because I don't know what we're going on about.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like something terrible is happening. It's like I fucking squat like this all the time.
Yeah, is there a fire going on?
Yeah, there isn't anything new. And he got his feelings hurt a little bit. I had to hug him afterwards, but I was like, don't you understand? This is a powerlifting gym. Like, people are going to yell in here. People are going to yell at you if you do something stupid. Right. People are going to yell at you.
It's we all have our own like mojo, when we're doing a lift, and it can be really frustrating if somebody goes against the grain of what it is you're trying to do. Like maybe you put your belt on a certain way, and you have that one person that you go to that helps latch it on a little bit tighter. All that stuff's like really like weird and bitchy stuff, but it's routine, and you find comfort in it. And what we're doing is so uncomfortable, and so somebody messes with that. Yesterday when I was squatting, we were just doing multiple sets of 3, and this young kid is spotting me. I mean, he's a super nice kid. He helped us move, and he's not even really part of the gym yet. But he was spotting me, and he was like, he had his hands, hooked like way under me, and I have light weight, so I'm just like, it's kind of, and I move around a lot. You remember, like when I'd set up, like I'd always bump people, and I'd get a little frustrated because they didn't know that I move around so much before I lift the weight up, and so it's just kind of irritating. But it's weird that those little things, like as if everyone's supposed to be a mind reader and know.
But the funny thing is that if you're in the situation long enough, you are a mind reader and you do know. And a way that you can tell is that with a monolift, you have to unload the bar at the same time.
Right.
You have to unload the plates at the same time, or it will unbalance, especially when the hooks are all the way in.
Yeah.
And you're in sync when people are actually paying attention. They check each other's eyes before they pull each plate off,
right,
so the bar doesn't go flying through the air.
Yeah, and I always I always tell people, I'll say, hey, just so you know, I saw you grip the bar unevenly and press it a little unevenly. Your right, like if they're benching or something, your right side was ahead of your left side. I don't know if that's normal for you, because I've, now that I think about it, I've never been at this exact angle with you at that exact weight before. I'm just telling you. So if you feel you should correct it, then go ahead. But you might lift crooked all the time.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anyone who's going to be 100% symmetrical every time they lift, right?
Right. Yeah. I know I'm all over the place on the bench, and those commercial benches too. We have the wider pads here.
Yeah.
The wider, deeper pads.
Your shoulder will be in a weird spot.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just be all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard.
And that's scary too, I think.
No one's going to be completely even. The other thing, for a second, I'm double checking. Yeah. The other thing I was going to say, that's a huge deterrent when you're training is, other than pain, is not getting results. And you can train and train and train and train. And if you're a newer lifter or you're new to the gym, a lot of times any change, just you exercising 3 times a week could provide some good results. But there's nothing worse than not really seeing any results.
Right.
And that could be a huge deterrent too. And I think it's the reason why a lot of people don't stick with any form of fitness. But it takes time. It really does. It takes a long time. You can get there a lot faster, though, if you're paying attention to your nutrition. Mm-hmm. I mean, somebody that acquires even just a little bit of muscle mass can start to see good results if they can work on getting leaner.
Right. Another thing that I hate to get too locked into the whole wearable thing. I actually have my Fitbit on today because I forgot to put it back on when I got out of the shower. But thing that I noticed that is pretty profound is what the difference in my resting heart rate when I'm actually getting good cardio or metabolic kind of training in, and when I'm not. I had a couple weeks there where it wasn't possible, and I saw my resting heart rate go up like 10 points.
Shit.
And that's pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
And something like a wearable, though, can give you a better sense of where you are, give you feedback. Because cardio conditioning, that shit happens. You can get it fast and you can lose it fast.
Yeah, and just like strength training, I mean, sometimes you go to pick up a 45-pound plate and it feels like it's 100.
Yeah.
And same thing can happen with conditioning. You could go to do something for a particular day and maybe you didn't sleep well or whatever the case is, and you can't breathe for shit. Or maybe it's just, out here in California, sometimes we'll have those days where there's fires and other shit going on.
That's really what did it to me. That trip to Oregon killed
allergies. There's just, you can be sick, a little bit. And so the more attached you are to what's going on with your body, I think the better off you are. But when it comes to training and trying to just get momentum, you have to have continued success, and the only way you're going to have success is to go after the low-hanging fruit,
Right.
And say, all right, well, this is where I'm at for now, and I'm going to try to improve upon this. And it could be the littlest thing, just try to go for a fucking walk every day. Like I think everyone has time. I've been talking about these 10-minute walks. I do at least probably 2 of them almost every single day, or I do some version of getting in 20 or 30 minutes of walking every day, just where I can. And like, for me, it's as easy as making a couple phone calls, and then the walk is over. I'm like, oh shit, I got in some exercise, and I cranked out a couple phone calls, and and everything doesn't have to always be so hard. I heard somebody the other day say that if your exercise requires special clothing, then you're kind of doing it wrong. Like, it shouldn't always have to be this thing.
Yeah.
Like, you can go for a walk in a pair of jeans. Doesn't matter what you're wearing. You can just go do it real easily.
Well, I think that you can wear special clothing if you want to, but not having the special clothing shouldn't keep you from doing it.
Right, and that's more for stuff that's like low intensity. Obviously, if you're going to go to the gym and squat and stuff, it'd be super uncomfortable to wear jeans, and you would look weird.
But it would be a little bit like a squat suit.
Yeah, you'd be able to cheat because you get a little
rebound,
a little bounce out of that denim. But not everything always has to be so hard and so difficult.
I got the stretchy denim.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, they make them like that nowadays.
Yeah.
But just having some stuff to do, even just working on your diet, working on your nutrition, can help you build momentum. The only way you're going to be able to really build self-respect and feel good about yourself is to figure out a way to get some momentum, and you can start to do that meal by meal and say, like, okay, I used to eat 5 meals every day or 4 meals every day, and they're all shitty.
Mm-hmm.
Now I've cut that in half. Now, half my meals are not great and half my meals are good. And you can start to create some inroads into being successful.
We have over the last couple of weeks talked about counting macros and one thing or another. And the thing that I have determined this time around is that I can't contort my diet around to meet macro goals and things like that and expect to be able to continue to lose weight and keep it off. I have to adapt my regular diet to things that are satisfying to me, but have reasonable calories, reasonable macros, and not try to put such a fine point on it. I mean, I can track it, but crazy macro targets are not sustainable for me, and I'm not trying to take my shirt off in front of the world. So just people who are physique athletes are doing certain things to get a certain look. If you are not that person, then you can take a simpler approach by eating good food, reasonable amounts at reasonable times, and I mean, go keto if you want, but for me, I have to do something that works for me and is going to continue working for me.
Yeah, and having continued success is hard, whether it's lifting or your diet. There's not a diet that I can think of where you always just end up weighing less. I can't, you can, if you can follow something to a T and someone says, hey, we did some of the math on this and they had some of that, we've talked about how the math doesn't even add up correctly a lot of times because you can't tell how much is in a certain amount of food, and you can't tell someone's biology how many calories they're going to burn, and it's all very hard to figure out. But even if somebody did have a really good roadmap for you and they said, here's what you're going to do, you're going to lose 10 pounds, who the fuck could follow it? Who the fuck could follow it like to a T, like exactly? There's going to be some people. There's going to be some people, but as you said, you got to figure out what you feel comfortable with and what's going to work for you. And then also too, like, what's the big rush? If you're somebody that listens to this show often and you want to start losing some weight, and even if you're heavy, you don't need to be 100 pounds less tomorrow or 50 pounds less tomorrow.
No.
it's just going to be something that you're going to have to chip away at over time. And the worse off you are, the easier it will be to have improvement in the beginning, and it will, as at some point start to become more and more difficult. But we get into these habits where we get frustrated with training, and we're not training as much as we should or as hard as we should, and then we also get into these ruts where we eat like shit, and it causes a storm of you continually being on that cycle of wanting to eat junk and not exercise.
Yeah.
You figure out ways of not falling into that fucking ditch.
I actually got this message this morning. This actually very early this morning. This was actually a comment on Friday's episode, our 4th anniversary episode, from John Ruggiero. He said, Mark and Jim, forgive me if this is not the right platform for my rant. I just felt compelled to thank you. I have been an on and off lifter and never really getting past the beginning stages due to injury or lack of progress, leading to lack of motivation. Through finding the PowerCast, I was able to find resources and information to help me stay on track and somewhat injury-free. My lifts and confidence have improved tremendously over the past year and a half of training consistently. I owe a lot of that to you because the PowerCast has been my like-minded people you always talk about and helped me stay on track through a lot of my challenges. I am a contractor/carpenter by trade, have recently donated my efforts to a local powerlifting/training facility in my area that is just getting started and being built. I feel now that I not only have the PowerCast as like-minded people, but a new local community. Thank you for helping me realize that it's a lifetime pursuit and not a short-term goal that matters. I now know that it's better to be at 60% of who I want to be than 0. Thank you again, John Ruggiero.
It's not just what I said.
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, thanks for writing that in. That's outstanding. I've told people before too, like if you really hate dieting and hate paying attention to your food that much, try dieting for a day. Just try a plan, try something that you've heard about. Could be, if it fits your macros, it could be a keto thing. Try it for a day. Just find something that you can identify with at least halfway. And then maybe you try it for 2 days. And then maybe you're on it 4 days out of the 7 days and you're doing it more often than you're not doing it.
Right. It's still going to be fewer calories than...
You're still going to make... You'll at the very least... you'll be healthier.
Right.
Being healthier is like, it kind of sucks because you're like, well, fuck, you might not see much or might not, but over a long period of time, you can keep yourself from A, looking old as fuck, and B, feeling old as fuck over a long period of time if you're, working on your nutrition all the time.
I was gratified talking to Stan and Ed Cohn over the weekend at the Olympia.
I didn't have a chance to talk to Stanley.
Stan said I looked great, and I wanted to hug him. I didn't. I refrained, but
big bear hug.
A big bear hug. Yeah. No, he pays attention to these things with everybody all the time. That's right. Like his hypervigilance, I think, goes to what kind of condition people are in, whether there's what he's seen them lifting and all that stuff. He pays attention to those things so much more than we would think that he would, somebody who is as busy as he is. And Ed as well, but Ed's like keep losing. Like I'm really toying around with, okay, I'm going to lose 10 more, I'm going to lose 20 more, I'm going to go for 20 more and see how I feel at that point. And
it's not about being big anymore.
It's certainly not for me.
I'd still like to recapture some strength, but I'm not. It's not a huge concern. I know that it's there, and I know that moving around 5 plates for some sets and reps just takes just a couple workouts, and I did it just a few weeks back. It's just that I've dropped dramatically more since and haven't focused on it.
What are you weighing right now?
I was 238 this morning, so. But I don't care about any of that anymore either. I'll get down probably another 5 pounds or so and just see how it feels. See if I like it. I would like to be able to play around with being able to eat more food again, but I'm not where I want to be quite yet. So once I get there, then I can fuck around with bringing more carbs back in and doing other stuff, you know.
Well, you've been doing this for so long, and you know how to make the corrections.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, it's constantly evolving, and what I've been trying to tell people is that the keto style diet is, or any diet really, but a ketogenic style diet in particular, where you're really trying to manage the amount of carbohydrates that you're eating, can just be a reset for people.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, you're just hitting the reset button. You're kind of just starting over. And if any diet that you're following, again, I won't just say keto, but any diet that you're following, if you can make yourself leaner, if you can work on losing some weight and keeping your muscle mass, your metabolism is going to be more efficient. You're going to be able to burn more calories, especially if you gain muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And over a period of time, things will get easier. They won't get harder. If you just continue to drop your calories all the time, then that's where you can fall into a rut. So you have to figure out, how do I balance exercising more, eating less, and then how do I spin back out of that? Because you can't do that forever. You can't just keep lowering stuff. After a while, it won't make any sense, and then you're only eating like 800 calories a day or something crazy. And that certainly would help you lose weight, but it would defeat some of the purpose of what you're trying to really do.
Anyway, if you try to eat again halfway normally after that, then you just start putting weight back on because your metabolism has changed. But as I was actually looking through old comments on old episodes today, and somebody from a blog linked to something that Lane said on one of the previous shows about how the resting metabolic rate is really kind of a moving target.
Right.
So it's difficult to know the appropriate amount to eat that's going to be just maintenance.
Right.
You know? And they tell you to not eat below your RMR because you'll downregulate your metabolism.
Right.
But like, if you don't know what that is,
Yeah.
you really have to pay a lot of attention.
Yeah, I think, weighing yourself can be great for each person. They have different ways of doing that. Some people like to just do it once a week. Other people like to do it more often. I personally just have always liked to just get on the scale pretty much every day, but with the exception of, I know, like, if I ate a lot that day, or if I binged or went off the diet or whatever, I don't really see a great reason for me to weigh myself then, because I'm like, well, that's not going to be...
It's going to be discouraging.
All that positive reinforcement, I probably gained 8 pounds or 10 pounds or whatever, and there's probably no reason for me to even really look at it. I'll look at it the next day when it's a little bit more normal, because it's not like a true representation. Just like my weight in the morning isn't really a true representation of what I really weigh either, because I'm a little dehydrated and I don't always weigh that amount. Or sometimes after a training session, I could be less because it's so damn hot here sometimes. Could weigh like 10 pounds. Had that happen before, a couple times before.
Yeah, you shouldn't pay too much attention to those weights, I think, because you're just so dry.
Right. It's always baffling whenever you get good momentum. You're like, why do I sabotage myself? Why do I eat bad in the first place? Like, why do I even fucking care to have a beer or two with my friend? Like, you just, at a certain point, you're like, why the fuck do I do that? And then the next thing you know, you're doing it again. It does feel good, and it can be fun. I just think it's a matter of figuring out where and when it fits into your life.
My wife was asking me last night, like, what do you actually miss eating? It's like, well, right now, kind of nothing. Like, right. I would probably have a beer more often if I didn't know that it actually has an impact. It's got a sort of disproportionate impact on my weight. I will, for whatever reason, put weight back on very quickly.
Yeah, alcohol makes me hold a lot of weight. Yeah.
I would eat ice cream more often, but I think everyone would.
Mm-hmm.
If they had the opportunity, would just fucking eat ice cream every goddamn day.
Yeah, ice cream, or like a 2 slices of pizza here and there.
Yeah.
Like, it just sometimes it's nice to just be like a little bit normal and just like grab a fucking burrito and not worry about what's in it. But there's some consequences to that too.
Yeah, it has to be a considered decision.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with doing it as long as you're not doing it every single day.
Right.
But you have to think about what impact it's going to have and how you can balance it off
Right.
somewhere else. This is not being obsessed with food. This is just being mindful of what you're putting in your body and the effect that it has.
Yeah, and I never want to portray like that we're fitness freaks or anything, because
No.
I think that's kind of the wrong message too. We do spend a lot of time in the gym, and we certainly spend shitloads of time talking about all this stuff,
Yeah.
but really just trying to share messages and experiences with people. And we understand that it's not easy. Like there's a fucking In-N-Out burger and a McDonald's and a Burger King and there's a lot of great food around us all the time, but we don't have to indulge on it. You can kind of think about, the general population just all kind of doing the same shit. And if you want to be a better human being, then you work against all that. Mm-hmm. And you're like, you know what? I'm not going to be fucking fat like everybody else, especially if you already have the working out part down.
Yeah.
If you already have the exercise part down, then you should take it upon yourself to show other people what you're capable of and what you can do. Rather than just end up looking like everybody else, eating all the same. I mean, just next time you're at a restaurant, just kind of look around, and look at the guy next to you, fucking chowing down on some bread and butter, and just sit there and enjoy yourself and say, that's his decision to do that. And I'm going to make my decision my way, and I'm going to feel better about myself every day rather than feeling worse.
That's one of the things about going to these expos, because there's so many people who have made a commitment to looking a certain way and a certain degree of health, a certain degree of fitness. But when you look at all those people in an expo hall, you realize that you're looking at a bunch of individual pursuits. Everybody that's in there everybody who's in there has done what they've done for themselves. They haven't done it for anybody else. There's no, for most of the crowd, there's no money involved in it. There's no fame. There's none of that stuff. It's just to make themselves feel good about themselves. For whatever reason, not everybody has the greatest self-esteem in the world, and looking halfway decent and feeling strong is a good way to bolster that.
100%. And I think that a lot of people just they're not always paying attention to the fact that they're eating all this junk, and it catches up to everybody at some point. People kind of joke around and say, I can eat whatever I want. And it's like, well, yeah, maybe for a little while you can, but normally it catches up to people. Some people just are also not paying attention to how much food they're eating, and they're probably not consuming that much overall. Mm-hmm. But it has a way of catching up to us, and there's nothing worse than just disintegrating. I mean, there's people that are like, they end up in wheelchairs and stuff because they can't control their food. My mom's on a walker, and she's not on a walker because of anything in particular other than she doesn't want to make strong enough changes to get to alleviate some of that. And again, she's in pain, and she's tried to lose weight a bunch of times and had trouble. So you go back and forth, but when you have negative experiences with it, it's hard to get momentum. Mm-hmm. It's just so hard to get momentum. It's probably not really all that different from being drug or alcohol addicted, where you try, you're like, okay, that's it. I'm not drinking ever again. I learned my lesson, and there you are doing it again. It's not easy. We understand that side of it, but if you can find things that start out to be simple, those simple things can turn into things that can be really, really effective. My wife is somebody, I think your wife's similar. My wife is somebody who has just always kind of like been conscious of the food she eats.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's not like she does keto with me now, but in the past it was never like she was, writing down her calories or doing like if it fits your macros or Weight Watchers, or she was just like, I don't want to eat that because it's got too much fat in it. And really what she was saying is too many calories.
Yeah.
I used to kind of be like, why does she care so much about fat? But she just, if she was going to eat like a cheeseburger, she didn't mind eating a cheeseburger, but she would just eat like half of it. Eat
Yeah.
the other half later.
Yeah,
Eat a
yeah.
couple French fries, or get the burger with a salad, and then not have a Coke and stuff with it too. I mean, that's where it really starts to add up. It's like you just ate a bacon cheeseburger, French fries, and a Coke. It's like that shit's adding up fast.
If you're someone who's trying to lose weight and you have a spouse who doesn't have a big appetite, a really good way to eat kind of what you want is to split stuff when you go to restaurants and stuff. We do that pretty often now, and my wife loves it because she's very cost conscious, and she's like, I don't really want to order a whole entree that I'm not going to eat all of, and I don't necessarily want to take it home.
Yeah, and then people will order a shit ton of appetizers because you're starving when you sit down.
Yeah.
But instead of doing that, you could, the second you sit down, you could say, hey, I'd like to get a house salad.
Yeah, we did that the other day.
Boom, like it's done. And you take 5 bites of that fucking salad, and not like you're full, but it solved that urge, that strong hunger thing that you were so sure of you were going to die if you didn't eat. It gets calmed at least.
Yeah, Juan and I both did that the other day at lunch. Surprisingly, Juan. We sat down and he's like, "Can you just bring me a house salad like right now, like as soon as you possibly can? Just
tell him not to bring bread.
Yeah, bring me the house salad. I need the dressing on the side."
I even make it like funny. Like I'll say, hey, I'd love to get, as soon as I sit down, I'll say, I'd like to get a house salad, get the dressing on the side, and don't bring me bread. I don't eat that shit. And they always look at you funny, but they always get like a laugh out of it. And then they kind of understand, okay, this guy's going to be one of those ordering assholes that, takes forever to order because he's going to want this on the side. He's going to want that special thing going over there. And then they kind of understand, like, all right, we got somebody that is paying attention to what they're eating,
Yeah. I had a situation last night. Haven't really talked about this, but I'm taking an improv class.
Cool.
Something I haven't done in a long time. Something that the Silent One and I talked about doing years ago relative to
those are hard.
The show. Yeah.
That kind of stuff's weird.
Yeah, and I mean, in a lot of ways, it's very similar to the kind of stuff that you had to do for wrestling.
Yeah.
Cutting promos. You have to come up with stuff extemporaneously. You had to work with whoever's holding the mic. And anyway, though, we had to give 3 things about ourselves. And one of my things is that I have 2 grandkids, and that became a thing in the room. It's like, you can't be that old. And finally, the instructor's like, "Oh, you're into fitness and stuff." And I was like, "Well, yeah. I mean, what you're saying is that I'm not. I don't look older than I am because I'm not fat, and I don't. And I'm never been a smoker." He's like, "Do you ever smoke?" I said, "No." Right. So if you want to maintain yourself for the longer haul, taking care of yourself in terms of food and exercise and all that stuff makes a big difference.
What made you take that class?
It's something I wanted to do, like I said, for a long time. Like 4 years ago, Mike and I talked about it, and we just never pulled the trigger on it. And my wife is going to be traveling for the next 8 weeks, and the class is about 8 weeks. I was like, well, I don't have anything else going on Tuesday nights.
Might as well.
I might as well do it. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun so far. I am by far the oldest person in the class, but...
Well, I think, everybody always just thinks they know how to do stuff, and lifting is always a great example of that.
Yeah.
I'm sure the gym that you're at, when you see people working out, you're like, I'm not sure what's happening.
No, people who can't squat past a little, this little curtsy.
Yeah, you're just like, I don't know what's going on. You see people kind of, I always called it working out backwards. They're just doing some bullshit exercises right when they get to the gym, and when you have the most energy should be when you're focused in on doing stuff that's, as soon as you're warm, when you have the most energy, that should be when you're focused in on doing something that's going to cost a lot of energy, going to consume a lot of energy. But people just always assume they know how to do stuff. They're like, oh, bench? Yeah, I know how to bench. Talk in front of people? Yeah, I got it. It's like, well, you don't. How do you really know stuff unless you've been taught, right? Unless you learned it from somewhere. It's a skill, and improv stuff is really, really crazy, and especially if you're given some guidelines, along with that. It's like, okay, now you have a Texas accent and you're going to talk about 30 minutes about how much, or for 30 seconds about how much you love your wife and kids or something. It's like, wait, what? Hold on. What?
Yeah.
Oh, I got to do what? And then you're like, oh shit, can I even do a Texas accent?
Yeah. It's very structured. So that's helpful. But everybody went through the first session and talked about why they were taking the class. And a lot of it was, I need to feel like I have more confidence when I'm speaking in public or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's a person who's in law school, different people. There's a little bit of speech stuff. There's a guy who's from China whose English isn't perfect. And then the other end of the spectrum, there's a guy who's a legitimate stand-up comedian. And there's a guy who came up through the Groundlings organization, which is short form improv. And this class is long form improv, so like whole scenes, not like games, but like whole scenes.
Right.
And the thing that the instructor said I thought was great is that you're not going to get confidence from doing well. You're going to get confidence from doing poorly and realizing it's not the end of the world.
Right.
Because you suck pretty often, especially when you're getting started. There'll be things that just will not work, and you're going to end up just wallowing in how terrible they are on stage, but you won't die. You'll feel stupid, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, and they've said that Chris Farley, he learned from one of the greatest improv coaches of all time, and obviously he was insanely talented, but it's something I didn't really realize, that not only was he talented and gifted, but he also was well educated in it, and I had no idea, but watched a documentary on him a while back, and he was fucking great. And it's not just, he would go out there and like do crazy stuff and fall and make people laugh, but that wasn't all he could do, and it's a shame that we never got, like, I think he could have won like Academy Awards and shit. Like the guy was so good. I think we only saw like a little glimpse of what he could do. When you would see him do the one sketch that he would do where he would be with like the guy from the Beatles, and he'd be like, remember that time you were in the Beatles? Maybe on the skit that he does, right? Where he's acting all nervous. They said that's the way he really was, like on the inside. That was like that was like a chunk of him, and they said that's kind of part of why he was a little mad, he was a little crazy, a little different. But anyway, I just thought it was cool that he had the actual education, because I'm like, fuck, okay, that makes sense. Now I understand why he was like able to captivate so many fucking people, because he not only was he just gifted and talented with going fucking berserk, and really committing to something, but he was also taught it,
There is a
it's a really good documentary that was done on him that I saw, that I learned all that stuff from.
Tina Fey and Amy Poehler and Andy Richter and a bunch of other people are in a video that's on YouTube from Upright Citizens Brigade, which is the improv troupe that they were involved in. And the guy, actually the instructor for the class that I'm taking right now, came up through UCB. It's called ASCAT Theater. It was a long-running show of theirs. It's all improv. It was on Bravo probably in the 90s.
Oh, okay.
When these people were just coming up. It's fucking spectacular. If you want to see people who have true confidence in being able to make anything work, any stupid ass thing that comes at them work, check that out. And if you think about it, the people that we look up to in the strength community the most are the people who are strong and who are well spoken, who can motivate people, who can handle themselves in front of a crowd.
You look at like a lot of people that are looked up to that are, that have been popular, that have been labeled as being great, or these great musicians and great professional wrestlers and all these different people. They all have a lot of confidence to be as wild and over the top. You go watch a Ric Flair promo. By the way, Ric Flair is going to be 30 for 30 coming up.
Oh, really?
It's October 7th, so I don't know how that fits into this, but I think that's going to be really cool. But Ric Flair, Macho Man, you go into music, and there's tons of examples in music. But like somebody like Freddie Mercury, who just like he was just all in, you know, like his voice and the way he controlled his voice. And there's some people that you can get more people to agree they do have a beautiful singing voice, and there's other people in rock or rap or whatever that just develop their own tone, their own way, and they make shit work. Lil Wayne says the most outrageous, dumbest shit you've ever heard in your fucking life, and he just it's almost like when a woman wears something that's a little different than a lot of other women, but they just rock it. Yeah. They don't care. They're like, this is what I'm wearing. I'm aware that it's a little too short. And it's something really attractive and sexy. It doesn't have to be provocative, but there's something really sexy about that. And I'm sure females probably have the opposite, thing with men, but there's something very cool about somebody just wearing it. Somebody just, this is what they're doing. Like I'm sure the Rock is probably super attractive to women, just the way he just embraces being the fucking Rock.
Yeah, right? Well, and if he were not well spoken, we would never know him now.
Oh my God, yeah, if he was an idiot.
had he not been able to grab the mic in the ring and talk to the crowd,
yeah,
like it would never have happened for him.
Maybe the greatest improv person of all time.
Probably so.
Maybe.
Probably so.
He was him and Stone Cold going back and forth. Forget about it. It was amazing. Yeah, wrestling has a unique ability to kind of let some of those guys, have a mouthpiece,
right,
and to be able to speak that way. And it's developed such weird characters and stuff like that. But yeah, the ability to get up in front of people and communicate is something that, part of the reason I've done seminars and stuff for free and is just to get better at that shit, be able to communicate. I think communication and transportation, without those two things, I don't know what makes us any different than a fucking monkey.
No, I don't think there's much of anything at all.
You know what I mean?
Opposable thumbs. That's
yeah. So anyway,
if maybe when the new gym is up to speed, maybe we'll do a live one of these and bring somebody else on and have a good time.
Yeah, get right dead center in the middle of the gym. We might as well do one like that. That would look cool.
Yeah.
I think that's about it for us for today.
Yep, sounds good to me.
Multiply your hustle, multiply your muscle. May all your shits be tapered. I'm at Mark Spelly Bell on Instagram and Twitter. And make sure you go on iTunes, you sons of bitches. Give us a like, give us some compliments, give us a bunch of stars. Tell us how great we are. Tell Jim how great he's looking. He's dropping weight. Tell us that we're jacked. Tell us that we're tan. Catch you later.
Shout out to all of our sponsors, 8Man Strong Apparel at 8manstrong.com, bodybuilding.com for all your supplement needs, Precision Nutrition, get.pn/PowerCast is where you want to go for your free nutrition course, and it's been tailored for our audience around the role of carbs. CompexUSA.com for cutting-edge muscle stim machines. Get an additional 28% off with the code PowerCast. Reebok.com, home of the legacy lifting shoe. Increase your bench at howmuchyoubench.net. Power, the only strength magazine available in both digital and print at thepowermagazine.com. I'm at the Jim McD on all the social medias. Get off your butts and follow me a little bit, just a little bit. You can find the show on Instagram. We are at Mark Bell's PowerCast.
One last thing before we drop off. You guys are listening to these podcasts that Jim and I are doing just together. You guys are aware that we're doing 2 a week. Give us some comments and if you want us to cover certain topics, give us a topic. We'll pick 1 or 2 of them to talk over. But we're always trying to bring you more content that you like, and so if it comes directly from you, that would be great. Awesome. Later.